What's up, guys? It's Patricia from TarantulaHeaven.com. This is Miss Spidey. She is crunching on a cockroach right now, and it's so appropriate for this video because I wanted to talk about why you should not overwhelm your tarantulas with feeders. I first noticed this in pet stores, and this was many years ago. I think conventional pet stores have come a long way in the way that they care for exotic animals, because now I go into like a regular pet store and the tarantulas are on good substrate. They don't have a million crickets running around, and they generally look peaceful. That was not the case over 10 years ago at all. And it's wild that I've had Spidey for that long, but yeah, that was not the case. And one of the things that I noticed was not only was the substrate awful and like the living conditions not very good, but there would be like 10 crickets in the enclosure, and like zero respect about like, is this tarantula in pre-molt? Like, are we endangering it? Is this stressing the tarantula out? I have, and you know, I think Spidey is interesting because she's not one of those tarantulas that eats a ton. She fasts all the time, which is kind of like typical for Grammostola rosea tarantula, and she's never been one to like eat multiple times in one feeding, unless it's usually only in succession after she has finished a molt. That is usually the time where she'll be like starving and eat multiple days in a row, but she usually in one feeding she'll only eat one. But in pet stores, I would see that, you know, they have all these crickets, and I hear sometimes tarantula owners feeding their tarantulas like this too. I haven't had the experience of needing to do that. I do think that some tarantulas do have better appetites, or because of their size or species, like they have the will to eat. This species is generally very weird and picky with their food. Tarantulas also get incredibly stressed out, so if they're not hungry or they're satisfied, but there's like 4 other feeders in there, whether it's a cricket, a worm, a cockroach like Spidey's eating, it'll stress them out and bother them. I have seen Spidey once before bite a worm. So she went after a worm, actually, and she kicked hairs at it too, and she didn't even want to eat it. She just wanted to stop it from moving because it was annoying her. So I had to take it out because I was like, well, she's not interested. She just wants it to stop whatever it's doing. So your tarantulas will show signs of stress if they are feeling overwhelmed. A lot of them will kind of pace nervously or like start climbing their walls. A lot of them will kick hairs off their butt if they have urticating hairs, and so you'll kind of notice some bald spots that are not related to pre-molt. They will be probably more likely to threat pose if you try to refill their water or do anything in their enclosure. They'll just be like more touchy. You also really don't want to possibly overwhelm the tarantula with more food than it's interested in, because you never know if one of these guys is going to be really sneaky and like bury themselves or whatever, and that could be a huge problem with pre-molt. You don't want a lot of them in there anyway because they could mate, reproduce. That's happened to me too, where I put maybe 1 or 2 crickets in the enclosure at once, and I thought I got both of them, but apparently not fast enough, because a little while later I had a bunch of baby crickets running around in the substrate, and I had to completely throw everything out and redo the tank. It was very inconvenient because I had just done it, but there was no way I was going to get all those baby crickets out if I didn't. They were too small. So for the sake of like your animal possibly being in pre-molt and having feeders in the enclosure during that time being a very dangerous thing, you want to be able to keep track of what's in the enclosure. So I recommend 1 at a time, just for that, and also so that they can't get away with reproducing. The other thing is that feeders just generally do gross things in the enclosure. I have not had that issue so much with roaches, but with the worms and the crickets, I mean, crickets just smell bad anyway, and they are gross anyway, but with the worms, if Spidey didn't get it right away, they would burrow and, you know, sometimes get away. And there's no way to get them unless you dig a bunch of things up. And so, you know, months later, I would forget about it, right? And there would be this weird smell coming from the tank, and that's not good. So I haven't had that issue with roaches. I think that Spidey generally finds them easy to get because of their size. And that was not the case so much with the worms. But I think you definitely do want to be careful in terms of like knowing what you put in the enclosure and being able to know for sure that your tarantula has eaten it, or do you have to take it out? Because you just don't want to leave these guys in there with the tarantula, because it either could overwhelm the tarantula and make them annoyed or stressed, or it could be an issue with pre-molt. There are tons of stories about feeders who generally may seem innocent, and unfortunately a tarantula goes into pre-molt where it is defenseless and they become very dangerous. So don't underestimate your feeders. A lot of them are opportunistic. Crickets are disgusting and will eat anything. And so they're animals too. You know, they are trying to survive as well. So if your tarantula cannot defend itself, it's kind of one of those situations where it's like eat or be eaten, and that often happens. So that's what I like to share. Anyway, so don't overwhelm your tarantulas. It has been maybe 50 minutes now, 45 minutes or so, and the cockroach is less alive, but I believe, yes, it's still alive. Oh my gosh. Tarantula keeping is like really brutal sometimes. But anyway, I hope that you guys really enjoyed seeing her eat. If you hear something in the background, my cat is eating too, which is kind of adorable that they're eating together. And now I have to go put Spidey back in the closet so that Hiss, my cat, doesn't get too curious about her. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful Tarantula Tuesday. Take care. Bye.